Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show that extracts the most valuable knowledge from your research stack, giving you the blueprint for extraordinary success.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are cracking the code on truly inspiring leadership. Specifically, the really revolutionary concept of starting with why.
It's not just a concept, it's almost a biological and organizational imperative, isn't it? We've looked at sources that dissect how organizations like Apple or movements led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr. achieve this influence and loyalty.
Yeah, loyalty that goes far beyond just, rational thought or having better features.
Exactly. It's deeper than that.
That's right. So our mission today is to decode that secret pattern, the one used by these entities that get disproportionate success and lasting impact.
We're looking for that common denominator.
Yeah, what lets them inspire profound loyalty and action instead of just, forcing it or demanding it through transactions.
And this whole investigation really kicks off with understanding what the research calls the golden circle.
Okay, let's unpack this blueprint. The golden circle. Sounds simple enough in structure.
Yeah.
3 nested rings, like a bullseye.
Exactly, like a target. So start with the outermost ring, the what.
Right.
This is the easy layer. It's where pretty much every organization begins its communication.
What they sell, what they do.
What products, what services, what job function. It's tangible. You can point to it, measure it.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Okay, makes sense. Then moving inward.
You hit the HOW. This is where companies try to stand out. They talk about their unique process, maybe their differentiating values, their special sauce.
Their USP, unique selling proposition.
Right. And many businesses assume that just showing how they're better, that's enough to win customers over.
But it often isn't, is it?
Not for lasting loyalty, because the real engine room, the core, lies right in the center.
The WHY.
The WHY.
Okay.
And this isn't about profit. Profit is just a result. It's necessary, sure, but it's not the WHY.
So what is the WHY then?
It's the organization's purpose, its cause, its core belief. It's the fundamental reason your organization exists beyond making money. It's why anyone should actually care.
And here's the core distinction we really need to focus on today. Most companies, they communicate from the outside in, right?
Absolutely. Standard practice.
They state the what, maybe touch on the HOW,
Absolutely.
and they rarely, if ever, really articulate the WHY. And our research is showing that approach is fundamentally transactional.
Yeah.
It's just about the exchange.
But the world's truly extraordinary leaders, the game-changing organizations, they flip it. They communicate from the inside out.
Starting with the WHY.
Always starting with the WHY, their core belief, and then everything they do, every action, every product they launch, the what serves as tangible, undeniable proof of that initial belief.
The what becomes evidence of the WHY.
Precise.
Okay, so if the vast majority of businesses start with the what and how W, and that seems logical, maybe even easier, why does the research suggest it's so ineffective in the long run? Let's really unpack this difference between true inspiration and, manipulation.
That's the key word, isn't it? Manipulation.
Because it seems like most of the corporate world, whether they mean to or not, relies on it.
They absolutely do, especially in crowded markets, where everyone's shouting. Manipulation basically refers to any tactic designed to influence behavior right now. Get that quick sale.
But it doesn't build loyalty.
Fundamentally fails to build long-term loyalty. We're talking about heavy reliance on price cuts, promotions, maybe fear tactics.
Like limited time offer.
Right, or appealing to aspirations, be like the celebrity, or just plain old peer pressure. They work, often immediately, but they corrode trust.
I get price incentives, offering a discount. But why is that considered manipulation if the customer actually saves money? Seems like a win-win.
Well, it seems like it, but it shifts the whole relationship. It moves away from value, from belief in the product or brand, and focuses solely on the transaction, on the deal itself.
So the customer's loyal to the discount, not the company.
Exactly. If someone else offers a better deal tomorrow, poof, they're gone. No hesitation. Our analysis points directly to, decades of this strategy being used by General Motors.
Oh, yeah, GM. For over 70 years, they sold more cars than anyone else globally, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that was fueled by these relentless incentives.
Constant promotions, cashback offers ranging from like $500 up to a massive $7,000 just to move cars off the lot.
Seems effective, in the short term anyway.
Oh, the sales spikes were immediate. But the consequence, it was dramatic. They basically gutted the perceived value of their own product, and they destroyed their profit margins in the process.
Destroy them how badly?
The specific data we looked at, it shows that by 2007, GM was losing an average of $729. Losing $729 on every single vehicle they sold, and the vast majority of that loss, directly tied to those sales incentives.
Losing over $700 per car. That's just staggering. How does that even happen? How does it get that bad?
It's systemic. It becomes a cycle. You essentially create cashback addicts.
Addicts.
Yeah, because when you condition a customer to always expect, say, $10,000 off the sticker price, that just becomes the new normal, the baseline.
So the original price tag means nothing anymore.
Exactly. The customer stops trusting that the company even believes in its own valuation. And then there's the dealer network, too. They rely on financing the cars on the lot, called floor planning.
Right.
When sales slow down because people are waiting for the next big incentive, the cost of that financing goes up. So what do? They push for even deeper, more aggressive incentives just to clear space. It becomes this downward spiral, this death spiral of lost profit margin.
So the company actually trains its customers to be disloyal, to wait for the manipulation.
Wow.
That's a powerful insight into the long-term cost.
It really is. And the same principle, it applies just as much to using fear and peer pressure. Think about those classic ads.
Like 4 out of 5 dentists prefer Trident.
That's the one. Or the really generic line you still hear, over 1 million satisfied customers.
Yeah, okay. So why is that manipulation?
Because it's subtle. It doesn't actually provide rational proof that the product is better. It just leverages our innate fear of being wrong or being the odd one out.
The pressure to conform.
Exactly. The underlying message is, look, all these smart people or this huge crowd endorse this. You'd be foolish not to join them. It's pressure disguised as evidence.
Got it. And then there's the manipulation of novelty, which gets confused with real innovation all the time. I definitely remember the hype around the Motorola RAZR-V3. That phone was everywhere.
Oh, the RAZR-V3. Textbook example of novelty. It sold, what, over 50 million units initially? Because it was sleek, it was thin, it was new.
It looked cool.
It looked really cool. But our research highlights that within just 4 short years, competitors easily matched or surpassed those specific features. The coolness wore off.
And the company suffered.
Motorola stock ended up trading at like 50% of its average value. The CEO got pushed out. They confused adding a new feature novelty with true innovation.
Okay, so what is the difference then between just a feature upgrade like the RAZR and what you're calling true innovation?
Novelty is just adding something new, like adding fluoride to toothpaste, then tartar control, then whitening, then stripes, ending up with 32 varieties of basically the same stuff.
Right. Marginal improvements.
It gives you a temporary bump, maybe, but it requires constant, expensive feature additions just to stay relevant. True innovation, though, that's a fundamental shift. It changes the entire game because it's driven by a clear purpose, a change in belief.
Like the iPhone.
Exactly. The iPhone wasn't just novelty, it was innovation because it dictated new terms to the mobile carriers, it redefined the user experience, all based on Apple's core belief in simplicity and, challenging the status quo. It wasn't just the thinner phone.
That makes a lot more sense. But how does this sort of transactional, manipulative thinking scale up to cause massive systemic failure? You mentioned the 2008 housing crisis earlier. That feels like a huge leap from, phone features or car discounts.
You'd think so, but it's really not. The 2008 crisis was essentially built brick by brick on millions of individual transactional decisions, all guided by short-term metrics.
How so?
Well, we reviewed reports detailing how banks, really driven by quarterly bonus structures,
The bonuses.
they prioritize immediate revenue, the quick win, over any sense of long-term stability. Underwriting standards, they just evaporated. Risk management became secondary to just pumping up the volume.
Because the whole system, the incentives, it was focused on the immediate commission.
Yeah.
The bonus check rather than the WHY. The actual purpose of a stable financial system, client trust, that kind of thing.
Precisely. If loyalty and trust were truly paramount, if the organizational WHY was clear and embedded, employees would likely refuse to sell toxic, high-risk, subprime mortgages packaged up as AAA-rated debt, knowing the damage it could cause down the line.
But they didn't.
But when the company culture is purely transactional, purely focused on the next number, the only metric that really matters is that next bonus. And that short-term focus, amplified across the entire industry, while it demonstrated the catastrophic systemic cost of building a foundation just on transactions, where very little loyalty or, frankly, ethical foresight existed.
Okay, that is a really chilling picture of how the outside-in approach the focus on what, can fail spectacularly.
Yeah.
So if manipulation just guarantees transactions and maybe eventual collapse, how do the truly great leaders, the enduring organizations, achieve that lasting loyalty and impact?
We have to return to the inside-out approach. It always comes back to starting with the WHY.
Right.
When organizations really master this inside-out communication WHY first, then how W, then what, they fundamentally stop selling products and they start selling beliefs.
And the products, the what?
They become the proof, the undeniable, tangible evidence of that belief system.
Okay, let's use the classic example everyone points to, Apple. Imagine for a second if Apple communicated like pretty much every other computer company, starting with the what.
Yeah.
What would that sound like?
Oh, it'd be completely generic. They'd say something like, we make great computers. They feature fast processors, beautifully designed aluminum casings, and they're simple to use.
All true statements.
All true. Then they'd finish with, buy one because they are clearly superior.
Logical, factual, and completely uninspiring. Flat.
Totally flat. Now let's flip it. Reverse the order, start with their clear WHY, the way Apple actually communicates.
How does it sound?
Apple says, everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. That's the WHY.
Okay, strong start.
Then the HLW. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and focused on the user experience.
And then the what?
And only then. And we happen to make great computers, phones, and MP3 players. Want to buy one?
It's actually astounding when you hear it laid out like that, just reversing the order, shifting the emphasis.
Yeah.
Without any price cuts, no celebrity endorsements, no fear tactics. It transforms a boring, rational statement into, like, a declaration of identity.
Exactly. The what, the computer, isn't just a sales pitch anymore. It's an invitation to join a movement, to align yourself with that belief.
So the product becomes a symbol.
It becomes a symbol, and that's why Apple can successfully sell things in wildly different categories. Computers, phones, watches, music, even payment systems now. Because when you buy an Apple product, you're not just buying a gadget, you're broadcasting your own belief. I challenge the status quo, I think differently. The product is just the badge you wear to express that identity.
And this principle, it's not just some modern corporate marketing trick, is it? This is the engine behind major historical movements, too. You look at the Wright brothers, achieving the first powered flight back in 1903.
Right. The Wright brothers. They were absolutely not the logical frontrunners if you just looked at the whats and HOWs.
Well.
No. They were humble bicycle shop owners from Dayton, Ohio. They had no government funding, no fancy college degrees. They operated on a shoestring budget, literally funded by profits from their bike shop.
Okay, so who was the logical frontrunner then?
That would be Samuel Pierpont Langley.
Langley. I vaguely remember the name, but he's often forgotten, isn't he?
He is, because he failed.
Right.
Langley was the secretary of the Smithsonian Institution, hugely respected. He had a massive $50,000 grant from the War Department. That was a fortune back then.
Wow.
He had access to the best scientific minds, direct government support. The press followed his every move. He had all the resources, all the perceived advantages.
But the Wright brothers beat him to it. Why?
Because the Wright brothers were driven by a pure, passionate belief in the possibility of human flight. That was their WHY. And that passion inspired a small, incredibly dedicated team willing to overcome impossible obstacles, crash after crash. They weren't primarily driven by fame or fortune, though that came later. They were driven by this profound vision, this belief.
So Langley had the better whats and howies, the funding, the resources, the education. But the Wright brothers had the clearer, the deeper WHY. And that passion, that belief, attracted the dedicated team they needed to actually solve the incredibly complex problems.
That's exactly it. And perhaps the most famous example of belief driving mass action on an even grander scale is Martin Luther King Jr.
Right, Dr. King.
Dr. King intuitively understood that to achieve real, lasting societal change, he needed thousands upon thousands of ordinary people to unite behind a single powerful vision, a shared belief.
Which is why, at the March on Washington in 1963, he delivered the I Have a Dream speech.
Not the I Have a Plan speech. Exactly.
That makes sense.
And we looked into the details of that march on Washington. The logistics, the HOW, were absolutely immense. Organizing travel for over 250,000 people, securing permits, ensuring safety, coordinating speakers, just mind-boggling complexity.
But people didn't show up for the schedule.
No, they didn't show up because of the brilliant organizational plan. They showed up for the belief he embodied, a belief in equality, injustice, and a better future. That was the WHY that drew them to Washington, D.C. on a hot August day.
And the power of that shared belief, it's really clear in the turnout itself, isn't it? Wasn't it something like a quarter of the attendees were white?
That's right. Nearly a quarter were white individuals, people who weren't, directly and immediately suffering under the legal injustices of segregation in the same way. Yet they were drawn by the cause itself, by the fundamental rightness of the WHY.
They were drawn by the belief.
They were drawn by the WHY. King became the living symbol of that belief system. And his success, the success of the civil rights movement, really demonstrates that even movements, not just products or companies, require that deep, compelling purpose to inspire people to act beyond their rational self-interest and commit in extraordinary ways.
Okay, the idea that we're drawn to a belief system, that makes intuitive sense. But why does starting with the WHY trigger loyalty in action in a way that just listing facts and features the what can't seem to manage? This is where it gets really interesting, where the golden circle stops being just like a business framework.
And starts aligning perfectly with human biology, with how our brains are actually wired.
Okay, tell me more. The brain connection.
It's the architecture, the golden circle, those 3 rings. It maps directly onto the major sections of the human brain when you look at it in cross-section.
Seriously, how?
Well, the outer 2 sections, the what and the Hey-Sow-W, they correspond pretty neatly to the neocortex.
The neocortex.
Yeah.
That's the newest part of the brain, evolutionarily speaking. The part responsible for rational thought, analysis, language.
Exactly. It processes all those facts, figures, features, benefits, technical specifications, the logical stuff.
Got it. So what about the center, the WHY?
The intersections, the WHY, and also parts of the HOW, align with the limbic brain. This is a much older part of the brain. It's the control center for our feelings, things like trust, loyalty, gut feelings, risk assessment, and crucially, it's the primary site for decision-making.
The limbic brain makes the decisions, not the rational neocortex.
Largely, yes. Especially the big ones, the ones based on feeling and trust. But here's the kicker, the major roadblock.
Yeah.
The limbic brain has 0 capacity for language.
No language. Wow. Okay, that changes things.
It's the biological bottleneck. So when inspirational leaders communicate from the WHY, they're speaking directly to the part of the brain that controls behavior and generates feelings of trust and loyalty.
Bypassing the language center, in a way.
Exactly. When we make a decision that just feels right, even if we can't articulate exactly why, that's the limbic brain signaling agreement, we then use our logical neocortex frantically after the fact to assemble facts and figures to rationalize that deep instinctual decision.
That perfectly explains why trying to explain our deepest feelings or motivations is so difficult. Like trying to explain why you love someone or why you took a huge risk on a gut feeling.
Right. You struggle to put the deep gut reason into words because the part of the brain that made the decision doesn't do words. So you default to the rational stuff your neocortex can handle. Well, she's financially stable, or he makes me laugh, or the job has a great 401k.
Those are rationalizations, justifications after the fact, not the true source of the conviction.
Precisely. And you see this play out in the marketplace constantly. You go to buy, I don't know, a new TV or a camera. You're bombarded with rational data.
There you go.
Pixels, megapixels, contrast ratios, gigabytes.
Your neocortex just gets overloaded. Analysis paralysis.
Totally. And what happens? You often end up choosing the brand that just feels best, the one you trust. Sometimes, regardless of the specific specs matching up perfectly, you make the gut call.
And then you go home and tell yourself it was because of the superior refresh rate.
Exactly. Inspiring leaders, brands that start with WHY, they sort of bypass that rational overload. They offer you a belief to feel, a purpose to connect with, not just a list of facts to analyze. And that deep instinctual connection is what translates into real loyalty, not just a one-off transaction.
Okay, so this power of belief, driven by the limbic brain, it's essential for achieving mass market success. But the research says you can't just jump straight to the masses, right? You have to understand the law of diffusion of innovation.
Ah, yes. Everett Rogers' work.
Yeah.
Crucial concept. This law basically segments the entire population based on how readily they adopt a new idea or technology.
Like a bell curve.
Exactly like a bell curve. You start with the tiny group of innovators, maybe 2.5% of the population. They love new stuff just because it's new.
Then come the critical group.
The early adopters, about 13.5%. These are the visionaries, the opinion leaders. They're willing to take a risk on a new idea if they believe in it, if it aligns with their values.
Okay, so innovators plus early adopters.
Yeah.
That's about 16%.
Right. Then you hit the big bulge in the middle, the early majority, 34%, and the late majority, 34%. These folks are more practical, more pragmatic.
They wait and see.
They wait and see. And finally, you have the laggards, 16%, who are very resistant to change, often only adopting something when the old way isn't even available anymore.
So for an organization built on a strong WHY, who's the real target audience? It's not that big middle chunk, is it?
No, absolutely not initially. The target is that crucial 13.5%, the early adopters,
Why them specifically?
because they are the ones willing to pay a premium or put up with some inconvenience like, standing in line for 6 hours for the first iPhone, precisely because the product or the idea resonates with their core beliefs. They buy the WHY.
And they become advocates.
They become your unpaid evangelists. They are the loyal fans who will spread the word, share their passion, simply because they believe in what you believe in.
Okay, so why is targeting them so vital for reaching the mainstream?
Because the early majority, that big practical group in the middle, they're skeptical, they're risk-averse, they need proof. They will not try something radically new until someone they trust, someone like them but maybe a bit more adventurous. An early adopter has tried it first and given it the thumbs up.
So the early adopters act as a bridge.
They are the critical bridge across what Jeffrey Moore called the chasm. The research is pretty clear. For any new idea or product to reach critical mass, to achieve widespread adoption, you must capture about 15% to 18% market penetration first.
That's the tipping point.
That's the tipping point. That's the moment you tip the system, cross the chasm, and the early majority starts to come on board because it feels safe enough.
And when companies miss this crucial link, when they don't connect with the early adopters first, even if their product is superior, they just fail to cross that chasm.
They get stuck. Which brings us, unfortunately, to the tragic case of TiVo.
Ah, TiVo. I remember TiVo. It really was a revolutionary product, wasn't it? Changed how we watch TV.
Genuinely superior technology, groundbreaking. But when they launched, how did they market it? They spoke only about the what.
Like pause live TV.
Exactly. Skip commercials. Record 2 shows at once. They went straight to the features and benefits, targeting the practical early majority, saying, look at all this cool stuff you can do.
And what did that skeptical majority say back?
They said, basically, meh, I don't really need it. I already own a VCR. Skipping ads sounds nice, but I don't really get it.
They didn't see the value proposition clearly enough?
They didn't see the WHY. TiVo completely failed to position the product based on a compelling belief. They never framed it as what it truly represented. A tool for taking back control of your time, a way to empower the viewer against the tyranny of broadcaster schedules, a champion for the individual.
Without that inspirational purpose?
They were just left competing on features, which the mass market initially refused to buy into because they didn't feel the need. TiVo never resonated with the early adopters on a belief level.
Emerald.
The result was a commercial failure, despite the brilliant tech. The data show that a few years after their supposedly revolutionary launch, there were still more homes in the U.S. with outdoor toilets than with TiVo units.
Ouch. That's a powerful lesson.
Yeah.
Great quality, great what, but zero inspirational WHY that connected with the right people first, leaving them stranded on the wrong side of the chasm.
Stranded, exactly.
Okay, so having clarity on your WHY creates that initial inspiration, gets those crucial early adopters on board. But for long-term success, for real loyalty to endure, that WHY needs to be more than just a slogan, right? It needs to show up consistently.
Absolutely. Consistency is where trust is truly built. Loyalty and trust emerge when the WHY is consistently reflected across all the actions, the HOWs and the whats. Everything the organization says and does needs to line up.
And this consistency creates a culture of deep trust, especially internally.
Yes, trust is non-negotiable for long-term success. Great organizations, the ones that really last, they create what feels like a circle of safety for their own people, for their employees.
A circle of safety.
Yeah, a feeling that leadership has their back, that they belong, that the organization prioritizes their well-being. If employees feel genuinely protected and trusted by their leadership, they, in turn, trust the vision, and they feel motivated to protect the company and deliver exceptional experiences to the customers outside that circle.
You can see this idea playing out even in really extreme high-stakes environments, like Ernest Shackleton's Antarctic expedition, the Endurance.
Shackleton.
A legendary example of leadership under impossible circumstances. His ship, the Endurance, got trapped in the Antarctic ice for months, was eventually crushed.
And the men were stranded on ice floes for, what, almost 2 years?
Incredible ordeal. Yet Shackleton managed to bring every single member of his crew home alive. No casualties, no mutiny, despite unimaginable hardship. How did he maintain morale and cohesion in that situation? It started before they even left, didn't it? with how he hired the crew.
Exactly. It started with his hiring process. There's that famous anecdote about his recruitment ad.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. It was brutally honest.
Right. The specifics are debated, maybe partly apocryphal, but the essence captures his approach perfectly. It supposedly read something like, "Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger. Safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success."
Wow. Not exactly selling the perks.
Not at all. He wasn't trying to recruit the sailors with the most impressive resumes, the best technical skills on paper. He was recruiting for good fit. Meaning people who shared the belief, the specific mindset, the mental toughness required for that insane level of sacrifice and danger. He hired based on passion, attitude, and alignment with the mission's brutal reality, the WHY, not just skills and experience alone.
And that deep alignment of belief, that shared understanding of the WHY, created a culture strong enough to ensure survival, even when all the material, what's the ship, the supplies, completely failed them.
That's the power of hiring for belief. And this focus on internal culture, on protecting the circle, it's mirrored today by companies like Southwest Airlines.
Southwest, right. They're consistently ranked really highly for customer service. But their internal policy isn't the standard, the customer's always right, is it?
No, it's not. And that's a subtle but incredibly powerful distinction. Founder Herb Kelleher was absolutely crystal clear on his philosophy.
What was it?
He stated, very publicly, employees come first. If employees are treated right, they treat the outside world right. And this makes the shareholders happy. It's a specific order.
Employees first.
Employees first. Southwest explicitly refuses to tolerate customers who abuse their flight attendants or ground crews. They've famously told really abusive passengers to please fly a different airline in the future. They protect their people, they protect the circle.
So by protecting the employee, the internal, how they generate that feeling of safety, loyalty, and trust within the circle. And that ensures the employee then feels empowered and motivated to deliver excellent service, the external what? It's like a closed loop, driven by the belief in treating people right.
It's precisely a closed loop of belief and action. Now, once you have that clear WHY and you've built that trusted internal culture, you need a mechanism to maintain consistency as you grow and face new decisions. You need a filter.
A filter.
Yeah. The research calls this the celery test.
The celery test. Okay, explain that.
Yeah,
Sounds healthy.
It is. It's about maintaining consistency with your WHY. Imagine your WI is simply to be healthy. You go grocery shopping, and down the aisle you're offered advice. Buy chocolate, buy cookies, buy celery, buy rice milk.
Lots of options.
Lots of options, lots of opportunities. Now, a conventional company, one without a clear WHY filter, might buy all of them. They all represent potential sales, right? Diversification.
Makes sense on the surface.
But a company with a clear WY to be healthy uses that WYY as a filter. They look at the options and they only buy the celery and maybe the rice milk because those are the only items truly consistent with their core belief.
So the celery test keeps the organization disciplined, focused on decisions that actually align with its purpose.
Exactly. It prevents drift. And this helps explain why certain products, even when they're technically brilliant, just completely fail on the market. They don't pass the celery test for that brand. They just don't feel right to the customer.
Okay, give me an example of failing the celery test.
The absolute prime example here is the Volkswagen Phaeton.
VW, the people's car.
Exactly. VW, the champion of accessibility, reliability, value for the everyman. They decided back in the early 2000s to introduce a $70,000 ultra-luxury sedan called the Phaeton.
$70,000 for a VW. That sounds off already.
It was off. Now, technologically, the car was an absolute masterpiece of German engineering. It had incredible features: 4-zone climate control, air-conditioned seats, even built-in electronic shiatsu massage function in the seats.
Shiatsu massage in a VW.
Yeah.
Wow. So arguably technologically superior to comparable Mercedes or BMW models at the time.
In many ways, yes. World-class engineering. But why did it fail so spectacularly? Why did nobody buy it?
It didn't pass the celery test.
It completely failed the celery test. It was totally inconsistent with VW's established WHY. The brand was known for the Beetle, the Golf, maybe that charming little flower vase on the dashboard. It championed the common person. Launching a $70 luxury limo violated that deeply held consumer perception and expectation.
It just didn't make sense coming from them.
Precisely. Consumers looked at it and thought, it just doesn't make sense. The brand identity simply lacked the credibility, the authenticity needed to sustain a product in that ultra-luxury market tier. The whole program was eventually canceled after racking up massive losses.
But hold on, isn't it logical for successful companies to try and expand their market reach, to move upscale? Shouldn't a truly superior, like the Phaeton's engineering, eventually overcome a slightly foggy or inconsistent WHY?
That's the trap. That's the rational outside-in thinking. VW hoped the superior what would generate profit, sure. But the lack of an authentic, consistent WHY meant they had to spend astronomical amounts on marketing, just trying to justify the Phaeton's existence, trying to convince people it made sense.
The internal cost of violating your own consistency is too high.
It's incredibly high. Compare that to, say, Southwest's open seating policy. If a legacy carrier like American or United suddenly tried implementing open seating tomorrow, it would feel cheap, confusing, chaotic. It wouldn't make sense for their brand.
Right. But for Southwest?
For Southwest, open seating is a direct, tangible expression of their WHY, championing the common person, efficiency, valuing equality. It feels authentic because it's consistent with who they are. It passes their celery test.
Okay, so the ultimate proof of this consistency, this alignment, is when people start adopting a company's what? Its products or symbols, as representations of their own WHY.
That's the pinnacle.
Yep.
And that takes us to the really extraordinary loyalty commanded by a brand like Harley-Davidson.
Harley? The tattoos.
The tattoos. Think about it. People voluntarily, permanently get Harley-Davidson logos tattooed on their bodies. That is not rational consumer behavior for someone who just bought a product based on features or price.
No, that's deep identity stuff.
It's pure identity. It demonstrates that the brand has been relentlessly clear, incredibly disciplined, and fiercely consistent about its WHY, freedom, rebellion, individualism, the open road for decades upon decades. The logo isn't just a picture of a motorcycle anymore. It's become a powerful symbol of a deeply held personal belief system for its followers, earned through absolute, unwavering adherence to their version of the celery test.
Okay, so clarity of WHY inspires people, consistency builds trust and loyalty, the celery test keeps you on track. It sounds like a solid formula. But the research you've looked at is pretty clear on something else too. The greatest threat to any organization, especially one built on a strong WHY, isn't usually external competition.
No, ironically, the biggest threat is often internal. It's success itself.
Success is the threat.
But because that's precisely when the split tends to happen.
The split. What's that?
Think about it. When an organization is small, just starting out, the founder is the physical embodiment of the WHY. They make every key decision based on their gut, guided by that inherent purpose. They are the WHY.
Right, it's personal. It's intuitive.
But as the organization grows, as it becomes successful, the founder physically cannot be everywhere at once. They can't make every decision anymore. They have to hire managers, delegate authority, build systems and processes to handle the scale.
And as that megaphone gets bigger, as the message has to travel through more layers,
the
clarity of that original founding vision often starts to diffuse, get fussy.
Exactly. It gets diluted. It drifts. This phenomenon, this split, often occurs because there's a natural and actually necessary tension within successful organizations.
A tension between what?
Between the WHY type leader and the HOW type leader.
Okay, explain those types.
The WHY type is the visionary, the dreamer, the inspirational figure with the big world-changing idea. Think Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, maybe Martin Luther King Jr. They embody the purpose.
Got it. And the HOW type?
The HOW type is the pragmatist, the builder, the operations expert who takes that vision and actually structures it, builds the systems, makes it function day to day. Think Walt's brother, Roy Disney, who handled the finances and operations, or Ralph Abernathy to MLK, the organizer. You need both for long-term survival.
The dreamer needs the doer.
Precisely. But the split happens when that WHY type founder either steps away, leaves the company, or maybe just becomes focused solely on external stuff, like being the public face.
And the HOW types take over the day-to-day running.
Right. And the HOW type managers, often very competent operators, tend to default to focusing on what they know best, what's easiest to measure. The tangible what's, metrics, profits, market share, quarterly earnings reports.
And the original WHY, the purpose, starts to fade into the background.
It fades, and the organization slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, starts leading from the outside in again, focusing on results over purpose.
Can you give an example of this split happening?
Dell is a really painful, clear example of this phenomenon back in the early 2000s. Michael Dell, the founder, the original WHY guy, focused on efficiency and direct-to-customer value.
Right.
He stepped down as CEO in 2004. And almost immediately, the company culture shifted. It became obsessed with hitting very specific short-term sales metrics, the WHETs.
And that obsession led to some bad decisions, didn't it? Driven by that purely transactional focus we talked about earlier.
Exactly. This intense fixation on just hitting the quarterly numbers led directly to manipulated earnings reports between 2003 and 2006. Dell got caught engaging in accounting tricks like channel stuffing,
What's channel stuffing?
basically forcing extra inventory onto their distribution partners right at the end of a quarter, just to make the sales numbers look good temporarily, even if that inventory wouldn't sell through quickly.
Pure short-termism.
Pure short-term focus on the what. They completely lost sight of the founder's original WHY, delivering real value and efficiency directly. The result was a fractured corporate culture, heavy fines from the SEC, and ultimately, the loss of their market leadership position to HP back in 2006. The split had real consequences.
And the sources you looked at point out that even giants like Microsoft, after Bill Gates stepped back, face this potential void, this risk of the WHY fading.
Absolutely. Gates was the undeniable physical embodiment of Microsoft's original WHY, a computer on every desk and in every home, empowering the average person with technology to boost productivity and capability.
A powerful, clear WHY.
Very clear. When that kind of iconic visionary figure leaves, even if the replacement CEO is incredibly competent, managerially a great HOW person, the company risks losing that inspirational core. It can start relying on just its massive size, its momentum, its existing market power, rather than genuine inspiration driven by purpose.
So if the company's original WHY isn't systematically embedded deep into the culture, if it only really lived in that one person, it becomes incredibly vulnerable when they leave.
Highly vulnerable. Starbucks faced this exact identity crisis after Howard Schultz, their visionary founder, left the CEO role back in 2000.
Schultz, his WHY was about the third place, right?
Exactly. Schultz wasn't just selling coffee. He was selling the experience of the third place, that comfortable, welcoming refuge between the stress of home and work. That was the WHY.
So what happened when he left?
When he left, the company, under new leadership, began focusing much more heavily on efficiency, expansion, throughput, basically, the what's and HOWs of selling more coffee faster.
And this led to changes.
It led to small but symbolically massive decisions, like starting to replace the reusable ceramic cups, which encouraged lingering and comfort, with standard disposable paper cups in many stores.
Is it like a minor operational tweak for efficiency?
Operationally, maybe, but symbolically, it signaled a shift away from the WHY. The atmosphere started to feel more transactional, less like a community hub. Instead of fostering that sense of refuge, the paper cups subtly suggested, "We love you, but maybe take your coffee and move along quickly now."
The purpose got fuzzy.
The purpose got fuzzy, the unique experience started to cheapen, and interestingly, sales and stock performance suffered significantly until Schultz actually returned a few years later, specifically to refocus the entire company on reinforcing that original third-place vision, that core WHY.
Wow, so this means that succession, choosing the next leader, is probably the ultimate litmus test of whether an organization's WHY is truly embedded or if it was just tied to the founder.
It's absolutely the ultimate test. It's not just about finding a replacement CEO with an excellent resume and great business skills, a good HOW person.
It's about finding a successor.
Exactly. A successor who genuinely understands, embodies, and passionately champions the original founding WHY. They don't come in to implement their new vision for the company. They see their role as carrying the founder's banner forward, leading the company into the future, guided by that original, crystal clear purpose.
That's the visionary continuity.
That is the visionary continuity that allows truly great organizations to thrive long, long after the initial visionary founder has departed. Because the WHY remains the constant guiding star embedded in the culture, not just in one person. #tag outro.
This has been an incredibly clarifying deep dive, really moving us from understanding the, frankly, dangers of purely transactional business driven by manipulation and price incentives.
All the way to the inspirational core of why people truly follow a leader or buy a product or join a movement. It's about belief.
So the key takeaways for you, the listener, seem really critical. First, manipulation might get you quick transactions, but it's authentic inspiration rooted in WHY that creates lasting loyalty.
Absolutely. Second, the golden circle isn't just a theory, it's your practical roadmap for authentic communication. Always start with the WHY, your deepest belief, your purpose, before you get into the details of the how to W or the what.
And that WHY works. It resonates because it taps directly into the decision-making center of our brain, the limbic system. It drives those powerful gut decisions, that emotional alignment that pure facts and figures alone can almost never achieve.
Right. And finally, sustainable success. Crossing that chasm, it's achieved by focusing ruthlessly first on those early adopters who already share your belief, and then maintaining absolute consistency, passing the celery test across everything you do. Your what must always, always serve as tangible proof of your WHY.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
Well, the most profound understanding of your own WHY, whether it's for your business, your career, or even your life. It probably doesn't come from looking outward at what you want to achieve, the yacht, the market share, the visible success metrics. No, it comes from looking inward at what you fundamentally stand for. Your WHY is usually born from your past experiences, your core values, those non-negotiable beliefs that define who you are.
And if your WHY remains ambiguous, if you can't articulate it clearly,
You will inevitably, eventually be forced to compete solely on price, quality, service, features, the whats. And that's the painful, slippery slope down towards commoditization, where loyalty is non-existent. Clarity on your purpose isn't just nice to have, it's what allows you to truly inspire, not just manipulate.
So, we leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over. You don't just buy what you believe. In many ways, you become what you believe. In your work, in your company, in your personal life. What does your movement, your contribution, truly stand for? What's your WHY?
And maybe more importantly, are your actions, your HOWs, and your whats consistent enough day to day to actually inspire someone else to believe in it as deeply as you claim to?
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.
It's been a great discussion.
We'll see you next time.